Tons of people use PostgreSQL, right? It's one of the world's most popular open source databases. But what most people don't know is that it has a secret superpower. And I mean, it's a feature so powerful it can completely change how you think about what a database is even for. So let's dig in and find out what it is. Okay, so let me ask you something. When you think of a database, what comes to mind? Probably just a big passive box for storing stuff, right? A container for information. But what if that box could do more? What if it could actively work with you, running its own logic, its own code? Just keep that idea in your head for a few minutes.
So first things first, let's get on the same page. What is PostgreSQL? Well, at its core, it's a relational database management system, or RDBMS, which, is a pretty fancy way of saying it's a system that organizes data into tables that can all be linked together, kind of like a massive collection of super-powered spreadsheets. All right, so what does that actually mean? Open source is simple. It's totally free for anyone to use, modify, and build upon. But that other term, object relational, that's the key hint here. It tells us that PostgreSQL can handle not just simple stuff like text and numbers, but also more complex, structured data objects. And that is where things start to get really, really interesting. Okay, and right here is where you get the first hint of that superpower I was talking about. Because while PostgreSQL does all this standard database stuff perfectly, it has these other capabilities that most databases just don't. Let's put them side by side.
So a standard database? Yeah, it's pretty limited. Custom data types? Nope. Multiple programming languages? Not a chance. But then you look over at the Postgres column, and it's just yes, yes, and yes, all the way down. That right there, that flexibility, that ability to be customized and extended, that's its secret weapon.
So that brings us to the big one. Its superpower, extensibility. And look, this isn't just some minor feature. It's a fundamental part of its design, and it completely changes the game. Okay, here's a good way to think about it. A standard database is kind of like a car you buy off the lot. It works great, sure, but you're stuck with the parts it came with. PostgreSQL, though, that's like a car where you can go into your garage, design, and build your own custom engine parts, bolt them on, and create something totally new. And the best part? You don't have to take the whole thing apart and rebuild it from scratch. So, what does that actually let you do? Well, for starters, you could create your very own data types. I mean, imagine telling your database that a column can only contain the values happy, sad, or meh. How cool is that? Or you could write your own functions for really complex math, or even invent brand new ways to search your data to make everything way, way faster. But out of all these incredible extensions, there's one that stands head and shoulders above the rest, and that's the ability to run full-on programming languages right inside the database itself. So, how does that work? It's done using something called procedural languages, or PLs for short. They let you write these things called user-defined functions. See, standard SQL is awesome for fetching data, right? Give me all the users from last Tuesday. But a procedural language, that lets you build real complex logic. We're talking loops, if-then statements, variables, the whole shebang. And it all lives and runs right there next to your data. And get this, PostgreSQL comes with 4 of these languages right out of the box. You've got PGSQL, which is kind of the workhorse for most database tasks. TCL and Perl are amazing for manipulating text. But there's one on this list, the last one, that gets a lot of people really excited, and that's Python. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Yes, that is real Python code running inside your database. Think about what this means. You could run a fraud detection algorithm while a transaction is happening, or you could analyze the sentiment of a review the second it's saved. And all of this happens inside the database without your app having to shuffle data back and forth. It is a complete game changer. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how on earth is this even possible, right? I mean, PostgreSQL is written in C. How does it run Python code? It sounds like magic. Let's take a quick look under the hood. So the secret ingredient, the bit of magic that makes it all work, is a little component called a handler. You can just think of it as a special adapter or a bridge that's written in C. Its whole job is to connect that foreign language, like Python, to the internal engine of Postgres so they can actually talk to each other. Now, this handler is pretty clever. It can work in one of 2 ways. For a really simple language, the handler can just do all the work itself. But for a big language like Python, it uses this act as glue mode. It's basically a universal translator. It doesn't actually run the Python code itself.
Nope. Instead, it just passes the code over to the real Python engine running on the server, waits for the result, and then hands that result back to PostgreSQL. It's just brilliant. So, here's the big takeaway from all this. When you can add your own custom data types, your own custom functions, and especially entire programming languages, you start to realize that PostgreSQL isn't just a database anymore. It's a full-on programmable platform for building really powerful data-heavy applications. And that really brings us full circle, back to that question I asked at the beginning. We all know our data needs a home, but PostgreSQL asks a much deeper question. What if your code, your business logic, your most complex calculations, what if they could live there too, right alongside the data they operate on? And once you start thinking about the answer to that question for your own projects, well, that opens up a whole new universe of possibilities, doesn't it?